Do you think music is more than just fun?
Totally, yeah. Music is powerful. Music is magic. It allows us to do so many things invisibly. And you can put it in the background, you can have it in the foreground, you can stop, start. You know, it's always there, and it helps you celebrate things. It helps you mourn. It drives people to, you know, battle. It can, you know, you can get married, and you can have, you know, create babies with it. It transports you. It reminds you of things in your life. Just hearing something, you're like, oh my God, you know. It's an incredibly powerful force, and it can actually change people's lives, you know. And that's why I think musicians have a really big responsibility to just keep on point, keep being mindful, keep getting better, showing up, because it's a really powerful thing.
Benny Rietveld, who still calls Hawaii home, is the bassist and music director for Santana, a band he first heard when he was a young boy growing up in Honolulu. He's been recording and touring with Santana since the 1990s, and he's also known locally as a member of Tues, a jazz fusion band that he and his high school friends had in the 1970s. Benny Rietveld, next on Long Story Short.
Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox is Hawaii's first weekly television program produced and broadcast in high definition.
Aloha mai kākou, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Benny Rietveld has recorded 3 albums with the iconic Latin rock band Santana, including Supernatural, which became a worldwide sensation when it was released in 1999. Rietveld was born in Holland to parents of Dutch, French, and Indonesian ancestry. They moved their family to Hawaii when Benny was 3. He grew up in Honolulu, where he started showing musical talent at a young age.
I took piano lessons when I was 6.
Why did you take piano when you're 6? Now that's early. How did that happen?
Because I remember Gem store on, well, I don't know.
Kapalama?
Yeah, in Kapalama, yeah. Well, we used to live in Kalihi, and so we'd go through there, and there was always the piano section, and I was always plinking on the piano, you know. And my mom thought, oh, he's musical. You know how kids, you know, they hit a hammer. It's like, oh, he's going to be a carpenter when he grows up.
But were you plunking better than most kids, do you think?
I don't think so. I just liked it. I liked the idea that you compress something and it creates this cool sound, I think. And that's how I remember it. And then so we got a little, you know, piano, upright piano. And she gave me lessons at Palama Settlement, and I think the first teacher was named Mrs. Leong, I think. But I didn't really like them. I was like, oh, really? You know, they're really like boring music and river keep on rolling, you know. It didn't get it. And then when I was 10, I remember the song, we still had the piano in the house, creating, you know, attracting dust. And then the song Hey Jude came out. From the Beatles, and had that cool piano intro, and I was like, wow, that's cool. I was like, oh, and then it's sort of like that instrument that's in our living room. So I was like over there, huh, and it turned, it was really easy for me, and it was really fun. So I thought, well, this is great. I'm going to keep doing this, you know. And so
you learned other songs.
And then I learned the entire Beatles catalog practically.
By yourself or with a teacher?
No, by myself. Yeah. I was, you know, then I was hooked. And then it was like, this is fun. I don't want to do anything else. And I was just on my way. And then I met my cousin, the guitar player in Topaz, or a Calabash cousin, actually, Fred Shooters. And he was slightly older than me, but he was already playing music. He was, you know, playing guitar. And his dad also played music. So I was like, wow, cool. And we met and we'd jam, you know, or try to play songs together.
You were on the piano?
Yeah, and then I branched out to drums and then a little bit of bass. And then we started, you know, playing, hey, let's do a band, you know. And so, yeah, we put together a band. When I was about 12, I was playing in these dances at, you know, Star of the Sea. And that was kind of the beginning of that. So, I met the guitar player for Topaz way back then.
So you were just picking it up as you went?
Yeah, because it was easy. And then,
you were playing for high school dances at age 12 or middle school dances?
Yes, yeah. My parents were a little worried because there were some situations where sometimes we'd play a party, and it was more like a high school kids party, and so there may have been some illicit drugs.
And it was nighttime.
And it was
driving.
nighttime, and so my parents, lost a lot of hair.
And you gave them reason to, I take
a little bit, but it was also, I wasn't that wild.
And where were you on instruments? Because right now you're a confirmed bassist.
Yeah, that's my.
How did you pick the bass, or did the bass pick you?
Well, this is the joke. Usually the bass picks you. It's usually because you don't know anyone else who plays the bass, so you're like, all right, you play the bass. So what happened to me was I was playing drums in this little dance band, and our bass player left. So we didn't know any other musicians, but we knew one drummer. So I was like, well, what do we do? So let's get him, and you play bass. So that's how it happened. But I kept playing guitar with Joe the fiddler, because it worked better for chords and stuff, and I kept up my piano playing. I just always was interested in all that stuff. But it just, I started getting kind of good on the bass, so which is easy to do. So that was that. It just just happens like that,
What schools did you go to?
I lived in town mostly, and I went to McKinley High School.
And you had a band director who was legendary.
Yes, legendary, Henry Miyamura. He's one of the big musical mentors of my life, and of Noel's life, and of Alan Wan's life, the other guys in Topaz. He was amazing. He's like that Mr. Holland guy. I mean, just deeply, deeply committed to the real essence of music performance, which goes beyond the notes and stuff, but the actual conveyance of the emotion or of the story or of the tragedy or comedy or whatever. It's news, and to get a bunch of high school kids, half of them who weren't really going to go into music anyway, or most of them, and get them to sound as good as he got those bands to sound is really a remarkable feat.
How do you think he did it?
I think he really loved music, and he loved people. He knew how important it was, even if we didn't, or if kids didn't, he knew,
While Benny Rietveld was busy playing music through high school, his parents were thinking about his future. They didn't consider music to be a suitable career path. But Benny was already doing what he loved, and it wasn't long before his talents took him from the local venues in Hawaii to a larger stage. Did you decide consciously, I'm going to be a musician as a livelihood?
I don't think so. The only time it was a conscious thought was as graduation from high school was imminent. Then my parents were like, so, what are you gonna do? You're gonna go to trade school? You should go to trade school because, you learn a trade, make a lot of money. I guess they didn't see me as the scholarly type, so, which I wasn't. And I said, I'm just gonna play music. I just assumed I was. So.
And were you already getting paid to play?
Yeah.
So.
It's just I don't know. Yeah, I just thought I was going to be a musician. And they went, what? No, you can't. And they were very upset for a little while. Only because, all they just saw their child, being an intravenous drug user and being in a gutter and, whatever, So, I totally get why they freaked out, But then after a while, they saw, well, he seems to be doing okay, and he's playing, and he's,
So. And you went to college right after that here?
Not right after, but yeah, I did.
Oh, so you graduated from
high school? I was living on my own, and I think for about a year, I was living on my own, and I got a scholarship for UH through Mr. Miyamura, who suggested I do that. So he championed me as far as getting a scholarship.
And didn't graduate?
No.
Because?
Because I was also playing music, and then I got a road touring gig with the Crusaders. It was very short, but with all my other gigs in Hawaii and then going off to the mainland for a little bit, I lost the whole momentum.
How did you make the transition from having lived almost all of your life in Hawaii to the mainland, to the continent?
With scars and heavy sweaters. Basically, that's how I made the transition. I moved to San Francisco first. And
that was I'm going to go try my luck in the San Francisco Bay Area?
Well, because I had a friend there already, and he said, you got to come here, there's a lot of good music there, and there was at the time. Lots of great musicians there.
How long did it take you to get your first musical gig?
A couple months, yeah, because I hardly knew anybody, so.
So did you just go watch performances and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I did a little of that, and then it was like a friend of mine said, oh, you should meet this guy, and then Ray Obiedo. And so met him, and he said, I need a bass player, and then he liked it, and once you start playing, then you meet other people, because your calling card is your playing,
Mm-hmm.
They liked what they heard, so, and then other people would ask, and hey, you want to play? And you go, yes,
You played with some biggies fairly early on.
No, I don't know. Pete Escovedo, it was, I learned a lot from him. Ray Obiedo, who's, used to play with Herbie Hancock and really good songwriter. And a lot of really great local San Francisco Bay Area musicians.
When's the first time you played with someone that you went, whoa, I'm with so-and-so, I'm intimidated?
Well, sort of like Sheila E, because her producer was Prince. So he'd be around, and I'm like, that was my sort of introduction to the high-end pop world.
And you went on tour with Sheila E, didn't you?
Yes, for about 2 years.
How did you get along with Prince?
He was like kind of a mysterious background guy, so he didn't talk much to us, but he seemed okay, but he kind of kept more to Sheila and, just sort of like, that.
Now, did that tour lead to anything?
Then I was playing around the Bay Area for a while, and then I guess Miles Davis was looking for a bass player, and he kind of wanted that sort of Prince-influenced sound. Then we rehearsed, and I met Miles, and it was crazy. And I think I was too much in shock to be actually intimidated, to tell you the truth. Yeah, it was only until, I think, a year later, I was on the stage, and I was like, holy crap, that's Miles Davis. Then I had that moment. But I think, your body, blesses you with the gift of shock. So you're just, immune.
And how was it? You have to feel each other in music. You have to work together. How did that go?
It went fabulously. He would, give direction while we're playing, and sometimes before the shows, we'd talk about, let's do this part a little faster, or let's do this kind of rhythm, and we would keep trying it. And it was really, that band was like a laboratory, because we would do the same song, and it would just evolve. It was like a petri dish. I mean, the songs would evolve, and so that if you hear the same song 2 years apart, they're almost radically different. The tempo is like way slower or faster, and this part is really loud, and it was really, really interesting. And it just demanded that you focus 100% on him and the music all the time. That was the big deal.
You have to be really mindful.
Yeah, like mindful to an incredible degree, because if you weren't, then he'd know, and then those eyes would, turn, laser, so yeah, you really had to be present, had to have presence of mind. Like,
so you had a real sense of what he wanted, who he wanted, how he wanted.
Yeah, and it was really, yet there was that, the challenge was to inject yourself within that framework.
And he expected you to.
Yeah. And so that was really intimidating, because I felt like I wasn't really mature enough as a musician to inject a lot of myself. But maybe I don't know, maybe I did. I don't know. That was another coming of age thing, because I had to completely, I think, almost completely relearn music, really music and bass playing and the ethos of what it means to be a bass player and what it means to be a musician,
Why?
Well, because I hadn't learned all these really basic fundamental things well enough,
So you were good enough to get in the band, but then once you were there, you had to up your game.
Yeah. It was like raw, talent is one thing, but to really hone it is quite another thing.
After 2.5 years playing with Miles Davis, Benny Rietveld moved on. 2 months later, he met Carlos Santana.
Coincidentally, I did a recording session with Carlos Santana, and
You sound so casual when you say that.
Well, no, I mean, because it would just happen, it was somebody else's session, and he goes, and we met, and I was like, wow. And that was another intimidating moment, because it was Carlos Santana, and I grew up looking at that album cover, and all that stuff, listening to those albums over and over again. And he said, yeah, I might need another bass player, and luckily we lived both in the Bay Area, so I called and I said, yeah, I would love to play. Are you kidding? So that's how that happened.
And aren't you the musical director as well now?
I don't know. I'm not really the musical director so much as traffic cop, because I consider Carlos actually the musical director, because he's very hands-on, and he has an uncanny ability to know, what he wants. It's more about during the show itself, when he calls an audible, which he does every time, then I just help direct traffic, okay, we're going here now, instead of, how we rehearsed it.
How much of the year do you go on tours?
With Santana, it's roughly 4 to 5 months out of the year, but it's broken up. You do get burnt out, no matter what you do. It's and he does it's always got to be really, really high level energy, fun, and if it's the minute it's a little bit below that, then we're not doing it.
Do you ever get sick of being asked to play a song you love, but you've heard it and you've sung it, Black Magic Woman, so many times before?
Nope, love it. That's great. I don't care about all the other times I played it. It's oh wow, this is the first time I'm playing it. That's special, and we have to convey that to people every time. That's the hard part. That's that's the higher level stuff. Not playing the music. It's the notes are whatever. That's like hammering a nail. Okay, but it's how to get into that thing, and it sounds so fluffy and goofy, but that is, to me, the higher level of music.
Did working with Santana when you started require a different sensibility than working with Miles Davis? Do you have to shift in any way?
Only superficially, actually, with the style of music, the genre, because more rock-oriented, Latin, which we hardly ever did in Miles's thing. But in essence, it was actually very similar, because they both wanted, demanded, passion and fire and presence of mind all the time, and not being afraid. I think that's another thing. You cannot have any fear.
Is there a way to describe how they work musically and how you work with them musically?
With both of those guys, it was about trying to articulate the inarticulable. That's the weird part about music, is that underneath the hood, underneath all the technique and theory and all the numbers, and which are all useful, underneath it all, it's I like to say, the last thing that music is about is music. It's really about feeling and life, and it sounds so fluffy, oh, it's feelings, but those guys, all the major guys hardly ever talk about nuts and bolts of music, you know. The jazz guys a little bit more because it's more their realm, you know. But it's all those guys share the predilection for using aphorisms to describe music. It should sound like, you know, red wine streaming through, you know, like, you know, something like that. And it just, sometimes it just sounds so bonkers, you know, to the uninitiated, you know. But then you realize it's just a personal lexicon and a cosmology. So, you know, and actually, now that I've known Carlos for a while, it makes complete sense, you know. Now when he says something, you know, like really poetic, I'm actually kind of knowing what it means in dry, boring music terms. Sometimes Miles would say, if an actual musical thing would be like, give that part a little lift. Instead of, you know, dung, 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 they'd be like, dung, ga-dung, 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 dung, ga-dung, you know, all these little things between. I think everyone knows that it's, deep down inside, it's really silly to talk about music because it's the most abstract of all art forms, you know. So, but we try anyway. We have to sometimes, you know. We're trying to convey what we want, you know.
Although Benny Rietveld lives in LA when he isn't touring with Santana, he likes to come to the place he calls home, Hawaii. In 2014, he and some of his former bandmates from Topaz reunited for a show. What brings you back to perform with your old high school buddies?
Love of music and love of them, you know. We've, you know, kept in contact all this time.
Tell me what the names are. Who's your gang?
The gang is Noel Okimoto on drums, Alan Wan on saxophones, Fred Schroeders on guitar, and Carl Wakeland on keyboards.
It's a pretty amazing group from McKinley High School, isn't it?
Yeah, well, me and Alan and Noel are from McKinley. Carl is from Mililani. Fred ended up graduating from Kaiser High School. We got kind of popular because we were these bunch of high school kids that could play this kind of difficult and technical music known at the time as fusion. And we loved jazz and all and that. So there weren't many 18-year-olds playing that at the time in Hawaii. So, you know, we got a kind of rep and we were the little darlings there for a while, and we even played at La Mancha for 2 weeks. And then we disbanded because we all had stuff and we did our lives. And Noel stayed here, and so he'd play, and his dad, his late dad, unfortunately, George Okimoto, would go to his gigs all the time. And George actually managed us back then in the day too, because he was the manager of Easy Music Center by Macaulay. And so he was like, you kids are like, really got something. And he gave us, got us equipment to use, cool new gear. So he was like our manager and really, really championed us. Cut to a couple of years ago, we're at Gordon Biersch, I'm visiting, and I see Noel, I'm like, listening to him, and Byron Yasui, and all these great local guys. And there's Noel's dad, George Okimoto, and he goes, hey, how come you guys, hurry up, give him a reunion, And it was like actually very bittersweet because he actually made a joke. He said, it's like, hey, hurry up before I die. So, and what I got from that was like, he wasn't really joking around. He was like, everyone is about to move on here, and you guys should do something because it was really special. So we did a show last year. It was really, really fun. So this year, again, earlier in the year, we recorded a CD. But, we all have these other crazy lives, and we're not going to let's have a band and tour together and go, that's not going to happen.
Did you ever think in your young life that you would be in your 50s and it's a tour, it's concerts and crowds and music and vans?
I had no idea. Who really knows what their thing is,
And how long do you see that going on?
playing music, being involved in music for me will go on until either I die or I find suddenly that I don't like it, you know. I don't really see the latter happening.
Benny Rietveld has not stopped having fun playing music since figuring out how to play Hey Jude on the piano at age 10. Along with his raw talent, his dedication to his craft, his ability to work with people, his fearlessness and his determination took him to a world stage. Mahalo to Benny Rietveld, a proud graduate of McKinley High School in Honolulu and longtime bassist for Santana. And thank you for joining us. For PBS Hawaii and Long Story Short, I'm Leslie Wilcox. Aloha hui ho.
For audio and written transcripts of all episodes of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, visit pbshawaii.org. To download free podcasts of Long Story Short with Leslie Wilcox, go to the Apple iTunes Store or visit pbshawaii.org.